morning, everyone. Welcome to Workshop 5, the Hidden Curriculum. Today, I'm joined by my colleagues, Justina, Jennifer, Anna, Meredith, and Natasha. We are all part of the team at the Woodsworth College Office of the Registrar. And my name is Joanne Collymore. I'm an academic advisor, and I will be delivering today's workshop and presentation for you. I just want to start by saying that we are all so pleased to welcome you to Woodsworth College. A couple of notes, the presentation is being recorded and all the links that you see on the screen today will be shared with you and provided in the Hidden Curriculum Toolbox that's available in our Welcome to Woodsworth Quirkus page. So for ease of access, just know that all these links will be provided to you at the end. And a couple of housekeeping items to begin today. We want to encourage you to check out the summer to-do list that's available on Quirkus at that Welcome to Woodsworth page. We also want to remind you that it is important that you get your T card and set up your University of Toronto email address. It's going to be very important that you do that so that you can receive important and timely communications from our office, and you can set this up even if you are not yet on campus. So that's the email part that you can set up if you're not yet on campus, but to get the T card, you'll need to be physically here to pick it up. A couple of other things we want to review with you are first-year learning opportunities, like the first-year learning communities. And the deadline to apply to FLIC will be July 2nd. And please reach out to us if you need more information on that, or you can find information about FLIC on the Welcome to Woodsworth page as well. Another really important point that we want to note is that for those of you that will be registered with accessibility services, and don't worry if you don't know what that is, we will provide some more information on that later on in the presentation. But if that is something that you're interested in or require, the deadline to do so for the fall accommodations will be July 13th at 5 p.m. and that is Eastern time. So additionally, not to scare anyone, but we do want to remind you to stay alert. And just speaking of your emails, as you set that up, expect that from time to time, you may receive phishing emails or malicious emails that pressure you to act immediately, or they might ask for money, your passwords, or personal details. And in these instances, we want to encourage you not to, and don't engage, do not interact with these messages. Report the email or forward it to report.phishing@utoronto.ca. If you're in doubt at all, please just reach out to our office and we will assist you with figuring out whether that is a legitimate message or not. And now on to our actual presentation for today. So there are a couple of topics that we will be reviewing in this session. And please do not worry if some of these terms sound like foreign concepts. That's why we are here today. We're going to review some of the key areas for unlocking and enriching a rewarding academic career for you, and that's one that you can approach with clarity, with intention, and with curiosity. So some of the topics that we will cover will be building your communication skills, talking about your executive function, your critical thinking, community, mentorship, and networks, and how to build that, considering your well-being and balance, and knowing that that is a very important part of your academic success, whatever your version of that might be. We will also do a practice scenario, and just keep in mind, this is not a test. It's a very low stakes situation. We just want to make sure that you have a chance to practice some of the things that we're going to learn today, and we're all just learning together. So it's no pressure, and we're going to have a lot of fun doing that, I hope. And at the very end, we will also have time for questions and answers. So we'll have a Q&A. You will have an opportunity to ask questions. So we want to start with, what is the hidden curriculum? So the hidden curriculum refers to the unwritten and unofficial lessons that learners acquire implicitly, and you're not taught these formally. So for a number of you, what you might not know, and that's the entire point of today's presentation, is that when you're pursuing an undergraduate degree, so that's either your Honors Bachelor of Arts, Honors Bachelor of Science here at U of T, Commerce, whatever it might be, one of the most important things to note is that the subject matter that you learn is very important, but there are underlying skills that you will build while you're here with us. And those include things like critical thinking, your organization, time management, and those have to do with your executive function. And those will all become very important in serving you in your academic career, in your professional lives, and just in adjusting socially as a person that's in the world, right? And so we want to make sure that while you're completing your degree, you're being intentional about building these skills and really mastering these, because it will be very important in terms of helping you to navigate your academic career successfully and in an efficient and effective manner. And so a couple of things to note about the hidden curriculum. It is heavily influenced by factors such as culture and socioeconomic background. And importantly, we want to point out that not all students undertake post-secondary studies with equal pre-existing knowledge of hidden curriculum skills. Access to this knowledge, as I said, is heavily influenced by culture, socioeconomic background. And to give you an example of what we mean by that, if you're thinking about networking and making professional connections, it requires knowledge of the norms and expectations that some students may not have had a chance to learn if the family or the school that they went to did not provide opportunities to learn these norms and practice these. For some of you, reaching out to elders or senior peers might seem very intimidating and might seem like a really taboo thing to do. And not appropriate, but in certain environments, it actually is. And so the important thing is being able to adapt to the environment that you're in. And while you're here at U of T, what we're trying to do is to bridge that gap in terms of the things that are implied, but you don't know what you don't know. And so we are trying to help you to figure those out with today's presentation, because as you'll see on the slide, these skills tend to be a determinant of your academic outcomes and access to opportunities within and beyond your post-secondary education. And so bridging that gap will help to sort of level that playing field, because as we said, some students know these things, some don't. And more importantly, it's just about being intentional and applying these efficiently as you move through your studies. The first thing we'll start with today will be communication. And so the power of clear and effective communication cannot be overstated. It's how you will demonstrate learning, it's how you'll share your ideas, and it's how you will seek out answers. And so there are a couple of things today that we want to review with you. These will be areas of focus in the context of your academic journey that we want to focus on today. So that will be your academic writing, how to ask for help, when to ask for help, and your communication etiquette, especially around email. And so as we move through this piece, please do reflect on the role of your own cultural norms or backgrounds and how these approaches might vary for you in terms of how you communicate. So we'll start with academic writing. And just briefly, the really important thing here is to remember that in many cases, you may need to unlearn rules from high school or other education systems if you're coming from a different country, another part of Canada. Overall, you're moving from a very different education system and standard to a post-secondary institution that will look to hold you to a very high standard of communication, of writing. And we have a number of resources available to help you in developing a more sophisticated style of writing, more sophisticated arguments, and just overall being able to communicate and demonstrate your learning in a more masterful way. And so we're moving along to email. Just talking about communication and practice here. And so this will be a very important point. So importantly, we want you, as I said, to set up that University of Toronto email address. And so we'd like for you to be emailing from that University of Toronto email account, just because it helps your instructors and members of the institution to recognize you and to know that we're receiving the email from you and that this is a trusted sender. In terms of sending an email and email etiquette, please include your student number, The subject, if you're emailing an instructor about a course, the subject line should include the course code. Please start your email with a proper greeting and state your question clearly. And so overall, we are looking to see you using that University of Toronto email address and using those appropriate opening and closings. And importantly, I want to note here that there are some questions and some discussions that are not well suited for email. And there are others that if you just need to check in for a clarification for something regarding your syllabus, if you're not going to make it to class or you're missing something and you need to ask a question, that's fine. That is an appropriate use of the email. But if it's a big question or a longer discussion, we'll talk about this later, and probably in the next slide, I think, you should be maybe considering office hours or an in-person discussion. But overall, if it's something that you will need to keep a record of, and as I said, a quick question, email is good. And just remember, the way that you write your emails helps you to present yourself well, which is why it's important that you have a respectful greeting and salutation and closing. So try not to go with the, hey, how, try not to go with too many informal salutations, or try not to skip the salutation altogether. So the next thing that we want to look at here is asking for help. And so this is a really important point that we want to drive home for you all. Don't be afraid to ask your professors or TAs for help. Don't be afraid to contact our team for help. And in deciding where to go, if you can't decide, please reach out to our office. We typically can point you in the right direction, but ask yourself first, who is best positioned to assist with your question or concern, and try to be proactive and reasonable. And so we're asking you to reach out proactively by following the instructions in your syllabus to reach out to your professor or TA for help. If your instincts say that you should seek clarification or feedback, please do follow through on that. Be professional in your communications by using the appropriate salutations and expressing yourself clearly, and try to respect your instructor's time and your own. As we mentioned earlier, please follow up when appropriate. Given expectations around response times can vary, but these are usually clearly stated. Your instructors and your TAs will usually say in your syllabus how long it will take for them to get back to you. Our office typically provides that information. The standard is often 3 to 5 business days, sometimes 2 to 4. Please avoid sending multiple emails and separate email threads about the same matter in quick succession. We know that sometimes you really want to get a response, you're really anxious about something, but to help us to better respond to you, please do allow for those response times. We want to ask you to use your critical thinking skills, and there will be more to come on this, to determine whether external factors might influence response times. For example, are we closed for the holiday break during December, and that means that you're just not going to get a response until we return? Is it a reasonable expectation then to know that until the break is over, that you won't get a response until then? And then conversely, we want you to keep in mind that if you've sent an email and you're waiting on an important update or document for more than 7 business days, consider sending a gentle reminder to your recipient. And so it's a little bit of a balance there, where in some cases you don't want to badger, but in other cases you do need to take initiative and follow up. So again, some things should be placed in writing and others can be communicated verbally. And so just consider whether you might need an answer documented or a clear record of the timing of your question. And I want to emphasize here to please remember that you're never bothering us. We would prefer that you reach out to seek assistance wherever needed. If you're ever in doubt, we cannot emphasize this enough. Please just reach out and ask the question. And lastly, I just want to note that learning to communicate with your instructors, your faculty, and your peers is how you will build the important relationships that will carry you through a successful academic career. It's how people get to know your interests, your passions, your needs, and your goals. So it's your first step in helping us to help you. On the screen, and again, we'll have these listed in the hidden curriculum toolbox. You will see that there are a number of resources to support your communication skill building, like the writing center, attending your instructor office hours where available, that transition from high school to university resource that I mentioned earlier, and of course, contacting the Woodsworth College Registrar's Office for academic and financial advising and any resource referrals. Again, we will usually always be able to point you in the right direction if we aren't the correct office to directly assist you. And so we're moving on to executive function. I know this probably sounds like a word salad, but executive function refers to the mental processes and the cognitive abilities that control skills required for goal-directed behavior. So each of you likely has a goal, whether that's to apply to specific programs or to pursue a specific career or graduate school in the future. And your executive function is what will really help you to zero in on those goals, make a strategy to achieve those goals, and plan and really make sure that you are achieving those in an appropriate timeline and that you're taking the right steps in the right order. And so this set of skills includes the ability to actively think about and choose the most suitable actions that are required to achieve goals, both in your individual and your team settings. And just a reminder again, many of these skills that we're talking about today will serve you in your academic setting, but we want you to think about how they will also be used in terms of your adjustment, just socially and also professionally in the future. So when we talk about executive function, we want to emphasize here that by intentionally developing these skills, you can proactively set those goals that we talked about, monitor your progress, and build confidence in your growth. And the confidence is a really key piece of this. For many of you, your programs might be competitive. The University of Toronto might feel like a competitive environment for you, but once you have a plan and you can see where you're going, and you're tracking that progress, it does help you to build that confidence and to remember that in many cases, this is a learning curve and you need to persist, and you are likely going to be building resilience as you move through this process of navigating your academic career. And so again, your goals are the primary source of motivation that you'll have. And so goal setting is the process of identifying those goals so that they can align with your actions. So goal setting requires an action plan that motivates an individual towards a goal. So keep that in mind because it might come up in your scenario-based question. For many of you, just to give you an example, you'll be applying to programs that require specific competitive grades for entry. Some of you may want to go on to law school or medical school. It can be helpful to begin with the end in mind in these cases. So establishing your goals, create a plan to achieve them, and these things can help you to act proactively and effectively plan for contingencies in case things don't go the way that you hope. And so that means that if you know you want to go to medical school, it's a good idea to check those requirements ahead of time so that you don't end up in your fourth year and find, oh, I need to fit a first year chemistry course into my plan, or I haven't been paying attention to the GPA requirements. And now maybe I need to take extra years that I wasn't anticipating, and financially I haven't planned for that, and time-wise I haven't planned for that, which again is why it's important that you begin with the end in mind. We also want to point out to you that we encourage you to do your best to avoid perfection paralysis. And what is that? So perfection paralysis is the inability to meet deadlines or complete tasks due to impossibly high standards or a fear of failing. It's the inability as well to move forward after a failure or setback. Perfection paralysis can involve setting impossibly high standards, as I said, and that in itself causes individuals to constantly shift the goalpost in pursuit of a better outcome. It's common for grades to dip in your first year. And in this regard, we want to remind you that, again, just continue managing and checking your progress. The good news is that things can improve over time. And as you're on that learning curve, you want to make sure that setbacks, frustration, trial and error, and even failure, that you're keeping in mind that all these things play a key role in learning any new concept or skill. So feedback is meant to help you understand what's going well and where you can improve. And remember, it's okay to recognize your limits and make strategic choices, including scaling back on courses or co-curriculars. So trust your intuition on when to keep pushing and when you'd benefit from pulling back. So in terms of the practical applications of executive function, just to recap here, we want you to begin with the end in mind. So you're planning for those goals and creating a strategy. When you have a number of assignments to do or really large assignments, you can break those down, make sure that you are tracking your deadlines. And that means checking your syllabus at the very beginning of the term to sort of map out and make a calendar of what you have due, just how demanding those assignments might be, and making sure that you're planning your time out realistically. So your study time should be planned out realistically, and then the time that you're allotting for the completion of your work, fitting in things for your well-being, all those separate, sometimes competing priorities, making sure that you plan for them realistically. An example of this is that if you plan to apply to graduate school, and this is beginning with the end in mind, we can start by reviewing the admission requirements for your prospective schools. These are usually on the websites for a number of institutions. They will let you know the GPA range that they're looking for, any specific courses that they're looking for. And beginning with the end in mind, knowing that you want that goal in the future, you can check these in advance. And that will inform your program selection. It will inform your course selection to make you a competitive candidate. And it can also let you plan for co-curricular and experiential learning opportunities that will support your achievement of that goal, because again, we want balance overall. If your goal is intellectual curiosity, we can also help you to design your degree to achieve a dynamic program selection and diverse course enrollment. Not everybody's goal will be graduate school. Not everybody wants to pursue a degree just for the purpose of going into a specific career. Some of you will find that you really enjoy learning. You find a lot of joy in the process of learning and growing through your education, and we can support you in that goal as well. And so overall, being organized will allow you to optimize your academic progress. And that is what we're really looking to help support you in throughout this process. And again, just being intentional about these things and understanding that it will go a long way if you can plan for this in advance and really be intentional about building these skills as opposed to kind of making it trial and error. And it's not going to start out perfect, and you're not going to master these right away. But if you know in advance that these are things that are going to be important, and that things that you have to build, and it might not be intrinsic to your existing skill set or the tools that you're bringing to your university career, it will really help you, especially because you'll be able to seek out the resources that are available to you in terms of developing these skills. And speaking of those resources, when it comes to your executive function, we have the Center for Learning Strategy support that can help you with your time management and organization. We have resources for managing major projects. If you are thinking of long-term professional or graduate school goals, we have career and further education advising that will be available to you. You can meet for a one-on-one appointment to go over applications or just your graduate school strategy. We have a number of resources to help you in terms of preparing for interviews. And at the fourth one that you see on the screen here, the First Year Learning Journey, which is a guide, is a really helpful resource that we hope that you will look into. Because as a first-year student, you have very unique adjustments and needs as you transition into university. And that guide is a really amazing resource that we would encourage you to check out. And moving on to your critical thinking. So this one is very important. And just to give you a brief overview of what we mean by this, critical thinking is the analysis and evaluation of facts and ideas that form a judgment and will guide your actions. These skills help students to generate and assess ideas, to formulate arguments, and solve problems. And it's really the problem-solving piece that's the most important here. And so thinking critically is dependent on the ability to reflect on your thought processes and to avoid the pitfalls of cognitive bias. And I'll explain more about what we mean by this. But the main thing to keep in mind here is that as you're moving through the degree, what we want you to pay attention to and to really build are your problem-solving skills. And again, just taking ownership and agency over the management and navigation of your academic career so that you're in charge, you're in control, and you're driving towards your goals, and you can really develop a sense of independence and ownership over that. So while it's not explicitly stated as a program or a course that you take during your academic career, critical thinking is one of the most important skills that you'll develop and hone while you're completing your degree. It can change the way that you see the world, the way you think about the world, and ultimately it can open entirely new worlds for you depending on how you learn to approach the different challenges and opportunities that you encounter. So your problem-solving approaches can be applied to a wide variety of issues that you encounter, including your academic performance and your social interactions. But overall, the development of these skills can support you personally, professionally, and socially. And when we talk about cognitive bias, what we mean by this is a tendency to focus on ideas that confirm your assumptions when you're filtering information. It can have negative effects when there is a difference between what you believe to be true and what is true. And so what do we mean by that? So if you think of an example where you've gotten a bad grade and immediately, based on your own cognitive bias, you can make an assumption that, oh, I've gotten a bad grade because my TA just does not like me. So is it true that you've gotten this bad grade because your TA doesn't like you, or are you adjusting to your first year of university and experiencing a learning curve? And so that kind of reflection is really important. And then that leads you further on your path to problem solving when you're met with challenges. And so an important thing to check in terms of your problem solving is to ensure that you're not sort of falling victim to cognitive biases. And we mentioned design thinking here as well. So design thinking is not linear. It is iterative in nature, and it makes the process rely on numerous trials until you find your desired solution. So adopting design thinking skills can help you to understand that daily challenges are dynamic, and their solutions as such may have to be modified over time as conditions change. And this is where we talk about that persistence and building your resilience. And overall, this mindset gives students the ability to respond to the ever-changing nature of the world. So we aren't saying to do the same thing over and over again. We don't recommend that. But we are asking you to try different approaches and adjust because that can really help you to grow. And just in many cases, remember that you want to keep moving forward. You still do need to do that reflection, check your cognitive biases, make sure that you are being practical and realistic and reasonable in your problem solving, and just understanding that sometimes a different approach or a different direction is necessary, and that your learning is likely an iterative process, and it's not likely to be a linear process in most cases. And so your critical thinking in practice, as I said, we want you to work on those skills to make informed decisions. So seeking out information to help you in your decisions, seeking advice, different opinions, understanding that sometimes you will have to adjust your plans when things don't go the way you were hoping. And again, just to be reflecting on those different outcomes to explore new approaches. And you can read more about critical thinking in practice at the University of Toronto by scanning this QR code. And in terms of resources, as I said, we have the U of T critical thinking resources. We have a learning how to learn workshop, which helps you to reflect on your first semester. So it's usually scheduled in the winter to help you set realistic and achievable goals for academic success. And we go over proven study skills to manage new challenges for university, including limiting burnout and becoming an effective learner. You can see here that we also have resources around managing imposter phenomenon, which is where an individual experiences extreme self-doubt in relation to their skill set, accomplishments, or talents. And I want to pause here to let you know that this can actually be something that's very common for a number of students in post-secondary settings. You can feel like, oh, maybe I'm not as smart as my peers. Maybe I don't really belong here. You do belong here. You have met the requirements to be admitted to this university, and we want to make sure that you have the resources that if this does kind of creep up on you, that you are keeping it well in hand and understanding that this is something that happens and it can be managed. And lastly, for your resources for this piece, using AI tools for learning at U of T. So just remember that effective learning requires time and practice, and there are appropriate uses of AI tools here at the University of Toronto. And we have a number of resources in terms of helping you to learn about these. We encourage you to check the syllabus of each of your courses, check the course policy to determine how your instructor feels about the use of AI in each course, because it can vary. And it is better to be informed. Do not assume that because your instructor has not made a specific statement about the use of AI, that means that it's okay. Always check first, please. And again, on this point, we want to emphasize that your learning is iterative and it's built upon reflection. And sometimes by using AI, you can rob yourself of that iterative experience and that learning resilience and benefiting from what we consider desirable difficulty. So you're here to learn, you want to invest the time and the energy to get the most out of the degree. So we want to encourage you, as we said, to use these tools responsibly and ensure that you remain within the outline provided in your course policy. And so we're coming up to community mentorship and networks. So whether you are seeking inclusive programming or identity-based supports, or you simply want to connect with others who share your lived experience, you'll find resources and people that are ready to welcome you here at the University of Toronto. And so that includes accessibility and faith-based spaces to communities for first generation and our Two-Spirit LGBTQ+ students. You will all be supported, seen, and empowered to thrive, because that is our goal here. So in terms of community building, I want to note that we have a number of resources. We mentioned earlier Flick. So that is the first year learning community. It is open right now for registration, and your deadline, for application, and your deadline for application will be July 2, so July 2nd, 2026. And so Flick, just to let you know, if you haven't already read about this, it's a small group of first year students who meet in person each week, and they're pre-enrolled in several courses, labs, and tutorials together. And so you're moving through your first year together with the small group that you're placed in. And so you end up having a built-in support system that's designed to help you succeed academically and socially, because all those things come together to influence how your adjustment goes as you move into university. We also have recognized study groups. Some of you, if you were at the Welcome event, or if you've heard about our Arrive Ready program, you know that there is a study group there that you have the opportunity to then move into the fall-winter session with. And so if you decide that you want to lead a recognized study group, you'll be working to improve not only your own academics, but you'll also help to support the success of your classmates. So again, you'd be joining a group of over 950 arts and science students who are leading their own recognized study groups across programs and areas of studies that vary. The other thing we want to note here is that student groups and clubs can connect you with people who share your interests and challenge you to grow. And this kind of community building can be so important. When you find your place and you find your people, a lot of our students find that that is where they will really thrive. Because if you've got people that are on the same page with you in terms of your study habits and achieving certain goals, you can go further together. And so we do encourage you to use these opportunities to connect and build your network and explore your passions and have fun while you're here. Again, just looking at that balance because it is going to be very important in carrying you through. We mentioned the co-curricular record, which is an official U of T document that recognizes your co-curricular involvement as an important part of your university experience. It will help you track, reflect on, and articulate and showcase any skills that you developed through your co-curricular learning experience at U of T. So that includes things like if you did participate in a recognized study group or clubs, if you joined student government, which is also in terms of community building, another great way to build leadership. Those things will be on your co-curricular record. There are also leadership opportunities such as the Laidlaw Undergraduate Leadership and Research Program. Again, going back to your executive function, if you know that the graduate programs or the career that you want, if this is going to be important to demonstrate leadership at this stage in your academic career, these are great opportunities to do this. And so the Laidlaw program was established to help develop leadership potential among students at prominent institutions around the world, including the University of Toronto. And so the core elements of this program include a research project, leadership training, leadership in action, experience, and network building. And so again, we encourage you to check out these resources. Now, we're coming to networking, and what do we mean by this? So networking is when you connect with people to expand your community and build relationships. It can be with people that you know and those you want to meet to gather information about careers and job opportunities. So we want to ensure that you're meeting new people and expanding that network. We have a number of career exploration and education workshops and events and industry panels. We have a pitch competition that also happens here at the University of Toronto. And it's another great opportunity to connect with other students that are looking to innovate and looking to build and grow things here. It's an opportunity as well to ask for referrals, to conduct informational interviews, find out the path that different people have taken on their way to goals that might be similar to yours. And so some of you may have very strong existing networks that are ready to guide and support you, and some of you may have to cultivate these networks from scratch. For international students, especially if you're moving from one country to another, or for those of you who are not from Toronto, again, you want to be making the most of these opportunities that are on campus and the events to build out that network. So don't be shy, please show up and be brave. If you're respectful and you're polite and you are well prepared, most people will be happy to help you. And again, just remember that we have that career exploration education team that is ready to help you in preparing to pursue networking if it's something that's brand new to you. And so just as you start to build out this network, please remember to ask for referrals, update your network on your progress. So these are people that you've met that might have helped you. Make sure that you're keeping them abreast of what's happening with you and your growth. Continue using social media and in-person network even after you have secured an opportunity, whether that's a research position, an internship, a job, whatever it might be. Make sure that you are nurturing and maintaining your connections. So an important piece here is that as you're connecting with instructors, for example, if you're in a small class environment and you've had that opportunity to build a relationship with an instructor, remember that these are things that have to be nurtured over time, and you do need to keep in touch. It can be a lot of work, it can be daunting, and it can be scary, but just remember that it is important to maintain those relationships if you do want to benefit from them in the long term. So as a quick tip, we want to make sure that you remember that every time you make a new contact, you should be keeping track of their contact information and keeping a record of how you met them, because you're likely to meet a lot of people and you don't want to be in a situation where you're like, oh, I don't remember where I met you or why. And so it's good to keep track of those things. Again, using those executive function skills to overlap here in the network building and nurturing those relationships. And now on to mentorship. So how do you seek mentorship? You should be introducing yourself, as we mentioned, to instructors and mentors, attend office hours, be prepared for those office hours. And again, remember to respect your own time and your instructor's time by coming prepared. Ask for guidance early. As I said, if we are planning ahead and we know what our goals are, we can often reach out to peers, reach out to instructors, faculty members, academic advisors to ask for guidance early on so that you can be mentored towards the achievement of your goals. And again, just remembering to build those relationships over time because it does take time. And on this point, just remember, if you are looking at graduate school or even jobs or internships, imagine that you're going to ask somebody to provide a reference for you or a letter of recommendation for an opportunity. You don't want to have spoken to someone one time and then ask them to write you a glowing reference. They won't have any idea who you are. They might not remember you. Your instructors are seeing a number of students. And so just make sure that you're showing up in those relationships in a way that will make you memorable in a good way and will be encouraging for the faculty member, advisor, whomever it might be, in supporting you throughout your goals and any references and recommendations or things like that. And so you'll see on the screen here that there are some resources for networking at U of T, meet with a career educator or peer advisor. We can't overstate this enough. This is a really excellent resource that is available to you for free. Keep track of your activities by putting these into your co-curricular record. And again, just make sure that you're using the Career Learning Network to explore jobs and internships, work study, and other opportunities. That is also a really important resource, a really valuable resource that is available to you, and we encourage you to check it out. As first-year students, I do want to note that you want to be careful in terms of the balance of transitioning into your first year of study and how that looks in terms of your pursuing jobs. You really want to use those critical thinking skills to reflect, think about your time management, and make sure that you're setting those realistic goals, because oftentimes as you're adjusting to university and the academic and the social transition, it can be quite difficult. And if you don't have to, you don't want to add another commitment like a job on top of that. And so our final point is talking about your well-being and balance. So the University of Toronto provides a range of health services for your physical and mental health, and these include wellness programs and information to help support you in achieving your personal and academic goals, because your well-being and striking that balance are actually very integral to your academic success. And so importantly, we want to emphasize that sleep, nutrition, and exercise directly affect your learning. And this is a good time to intentionally add what will be restoring energy back to your schedule and figuring that out and making sure it's in your plan. So try out some of the health and wellness workshops. We have mindful moments and other programs for drop-in meditation and yoga to help you manage stress. Please do proactively familiarize yourself with the resources available, including UHIP, so that is the University Health Insurance Plan for international students. You're insured to see a doctor in Toronto if you are unwell. Lots of international students avoid seeking healthcare because they're worried about the costs and access, and sometimes this applies to our out-of-province students or students that are used to having a family doctor back home and now they're in Toronto. Please review and familiarize yourself with both UHIP and the UTSU Health and Dental Plan. And note that for UHIP, Health and Wellness does provide a list of clinics that accept UHIP. And so when you go to the toolbox and you access the Health and Wellness site, you will also find where we house that list of clinics around campus that will accept your UHIP. And on the point of your University of Toronto Health and Dental Plan, know that you're also automatically opted in for this plan. If you're already covered by an equivalent health and or dental plan, such as your parents or a spouse's employee benefit plan, you can opt out during the change of coverage period, which is typically in September. If you're a registered student who is paying ancillary fees, you already have access to many of our sport and rec facilities here at U of T, including programs and services. You typically just need to show your T card and register online with your UTR ID. And so importantly, again, this is another really valuable resource. We have fantastic facilities on campus, and we encourage you to use these while you're here. And as we're on the point of health and wellness, I want to remind you all that health concerns can be both mental and physical. If health concerns create challenges in meeting your academic commitments, please start by checking your course policy to understand your options for academic consideration if you need that. And so that includes things like how to deal with late penalties, extensions, or just missed work altogether, what we consider acceptable documentation here at the University of Toronto and the Faculty of Arts and Science, and how you would obtain that documentation. If you're in doubt, we recommend that you contact our office for assistance as proactively as possible. And so please do keep those things in mind. Of course, in a best case scenario, we want you to remain on track with your assignments, but things happen, things come up, and just know that we are here to support you in navigating those challenges. So think critical thinking, problem solving skills. If something like that comes up, who do you ask for help? If you can't figure it out, we do want you to reach out to our team for support. And finally, for your health and wellness piece, we want to talk about finding your balance. So I mentioned at the top of the presentation, accessibility services. And so what this is a team here at the University of Toronto that supports students who experience difficulties that affect their learning in lectures, labs, and or tutorials. And so we provide academic and practical accommodations. And those accommodations are individualized to each student and their learning needs for each course and program. If you are experiencing difficulties that affect your learning, or you suspect you may have a disability, you may want to register with accessibility services. As I mentioned earlier, that deadline for the fall-winter term, well, for September, for accommodations by the first day of classes in September, that deadline will be July 13th at 5 p.m. And so again, importantly, if you're not sure if the disability is something that we can accommodate, you're not sure if your situation is aligned with the accommodations that can be offered, please err on the side of caution and just contact us and be candid. I want to note here as well that where accessibility services is concerned, your information is held confidentially. This is private. I know for many students, this can feel like a bit of a taboo subject, or it's something that you might not want to disclose, but it is important in helping us to help you. If we know what your needs are, it means that we can accommodate them. And instead of trying to struggle through or push through your degree without the appropriate supports, we can have those in place so you can meet your actual potential. Outside of that, we work very hard at the University of Toronto to ensure high quality, equitable, and available resources for students to promote good mental health and well-being. And so you'll find in the hidden curriculum toolbox where this link will be available that there are a number of mental health resources to support you, and we recommend that you familiarize yourselves with these. On the point of sleeping well, do not underestimate the importance of sleep. Consider the benefits of sleep for your health, your well-being, and your academics. Pulling an all-nighter or multiple all-nighters is not the flex that you think it is. If you need a little help with building good sleep habits, Sleeping Well is a workshop that's designed to help you improve your sleep, and it's led by a clinician. And so again, lots of resources available to help you through with building these skills and building positive and helpful habits. And again, so instead of struggling alone with overwhelming thoughts or emotions, you can also attend the Better Coping Skills session to recognize thoughts that are getting in the way of your success and create a toolkit to improve self-management. And so the point of this piece here is to let you know that, as I mentioned earlier, you're going to have a lot of agency and ownership and independence as you transition into university. And it can be very easy to fall into habits that, on reflection, a number of students think maybe that was not the way, that wasn't actually helpful. And so if you're looking for support in building positive habits, helpful habits to help you to manage your transition into university well, just know that we do offer a number of resources in that regard. A virtual welcome event on June 24th at 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. You can use the QR code on the screen to register for that. And in addition to that, you can also participate in our mentorship program. That's an E-Mentorship program that will keep you up to date on all our upcoming events and opportunities and help you to connect with an upper year peer as well. And speaking of that summer E-Mentorship, you're already enrolled and you'll be connecting with an upper year student to learn about the university and the city of Toronto as a whole, just to help with your transition in and your adjustment. And if you'd like to continue that mentorship into your first year, including monthly meetups and talking about how to achieve your academic goals, you will need to apply for that. And you can scan the QR code on the screen to learn more on that point. And as a quick note, we are going to have workshop 6 next, and that's going to be on Thursday, July 23rd at 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. And then workshop 7, Wellness in University and Preparing for Your First Term, is on Thursday, August 6th at 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. Those are both Eastern Time. You can use the QR code on the screen to register.